This video is going to be on a pair of, these are ultra-wide Constellation binoculars, and these are 3 power by 50 millimeter. So 3 by 50 means 3 power and 50 millimeter diameter for your primary lenses up here. I bought these on AliExpress, and I paid $50 with free shipping. I've seen them at a wide range of prices. Like I say, this is kind of a generic brand. They say Constellation Bino on them, and they have the 3 by 50 like what I got, and they also have another one that I believe is 2 by 40. And then if you start getting into other brand names, especially name brands, like Orion has some that are, I think 2.1 by 42 or something like that, which could mean that they're the same as these 2 by 40s that they sell. And then I think those were around $180. And Vixen has had some that have been as much as $300. The price may have came down. I saw another set in there. I don't remember the price or the brand name. I'll look them up. They were around $600. So those should be really good for that kind of money. But to give you an idea of what you got here, you've got your 50 millimeter diameter. You see, it's a very short binocular. So they're designed for wide views. This pair here says they're 17-degree field of view, which is very wide. When I compared what I could actually see through the binoculars to what my star chart said that 17 degrees is, I didn't get that much. I've heard that it has something to do with when they measure them, like say on a benchmark, with just equipment, they're not taking into account the distance from your eyeball to the eyepiece that you're looking in. So when I look through these, of course, I'm not wearing eyeglasses. I got contact lenses, but I can get these quite close to my eyes. If you're wearing glasses, you know how that is, they're out farther. So with that, you would have an even narrower field of view. But I've been really happy with them. They're not, they're obviously $50 binoculars. They've got vignetting, which if you're not familiar with that, basically that means the outer edge of the view looks kind of gray compared to the center. In the daytime, it's really noticeable. It's real distracting, and if I bought something like this for daytime, I wouldn't be happy at all. I used them on a full moon night when I first got them, and I could see the vignetting, but it wasn't horrible. And then on a dark night with no moon, I could see it, but I kind of have to look for it. If I'm paying attention to it, you can see it. But for the price, I was fine with that. As far as distortion at the edges, like I was looking at the star Vega, very bright, and if I got it to where the star was way up here at the very top of the field of view, kind of in that vignette area, the star started getting kind of elongated. It was pretty obvious, but that was with a really bright star. Of course, it did it with the others, but it wouldn't jump out at you as much. And I noticed depending on which side I put it on, it might be more or less noticeable. So it's probably different with each pair you get. But for the price, and like I say, when you're trying to have this wide of a field of view, you're getting a situation where you're starting to look at the very outer edges of the lens and maybe even at the barrel. That's probably what the vignetting is you're starting to look at the edges of the barrel, which can be, it's just part of life of trying to get an extra wide field of view. but I'm going to show you some stuff on the computer with a Carte du Ciel map and give you an idea of what I can see when I'm using these.
Okay, so here's a little snapshot I took of what came in the box. Of course, you got your binoculars, and they got a little soft case. It's got rubber cups to cover the large end. There's no cups for the eyepiece end. And a little cleaning cloth, and then the lanyard that, see, a neck strap. So that worked nice and it fit good. So here's a nice little close-up view of what they look like, and ignore the reflections. That's just the overhead light. And here you can see there it says Constellation Bino, which I guess that's like the brand name. I've seen several different offers on AliExpress. I don't know if it's coming from different stores or what. And 3 power by 50 millimeter, 17-degree field of view. I did notice I was looking on the Orion website. I believe theirs was 2 power by 54, and it claimed to have a 36-degree field of view. And the 2x by 40 of these Constellation Bino brand that was 24-degree field of view also had a threaded on the front here so that you could put on filters if you wanted. And one of the things some of them offered were light pollution filters. And I'm not sure what the rate on those for viewing through visually. Long time ago, I bought a light pollution filter, and it was just a general broadband one. And I live in a pretty dark area, and I put it on and looked at a M27 through my telescope, and I was really impressed with what I saw. And then later I bought an O3 filter for nebula, and that thing, it just made everything so dark. It was really difficult. Those kind of filters, you need to have a really dark sky, because I think there was 2 different ones now that this binocular guy was offering, and one of them was kind of a general light pollution filter, and the other one was like an extreme or something. And I would want to read reviews on how those are for visual before I committed to buy them, because they cost quite a bit more money. And then here's the eyepiece end of it, of course, and little spot where your lanyards go through. I remember before I bought these, I was reading reviews, and one guy said that he bought 2 different pairs, and I'm not sure if they were the exact same brand, but I thought they were. And he said that he had a collimation problem where he'd end up seeing double. And he said he got brave and kind of bent the metal here a little bit. So I don't know if maybe his were mounted together a little incorrectly or what, but mine don't have any issue with that at all. Okay, so now I've got Carte du Ciel opened up, and I want to try to give you an idea of what the field of view I got with these. And of course, I'm not wearing glasses when I do it, and I'm going to fine tune that view. Pause for a sec. Okay, so now I've got this where I want it. So it's advertised as having this large circle here, which is 17 degrees field of view. And I'm estimating that it's actually about 12.5. And I'm basing this on when I looked at the bowl of the Big Dipper. So I'll back off a little. So here you got your Big Dipper. and I noticed that the bowl of it pretty much just barely fit in all 4 stars. And then I'll show you a couple other objects I was looking at, some little constellation areas. So here is, this area here is called the keystone of the constellation Hercules, where M13 is. And from a relatively dark site like where I live, it's fairly easy to see. It looks kind of like a old red Solo cup up there. And through these little binoculars, I could see M13. Now, it was just a tiny little fuzzy patch. It didn't look like, the globular cluster or anything that you would see. But I could tell that it was there. And while I'm thinking about it, I noticed that where I live, in what's supposed to be a Bortle 4 sky, on a dark night with no moon, it was easy to see magnitude 6 with these, when I was maybe barely able to see magnitude 5 in the darker part of the sky. And I also, one spot, I thought I saw a magnitude 6.8 star, which almost magnitude 7. I was really impressed with that. So this fits in here easily, and like I said, I could see M13. So here is the constellation Lyra. There's star Vega, Alpha Lyra as they call it. And this fits in really nice. And I could see all kinds of these tiny little stars that were pretty faint. Let's say on here, the faintest one that I measured that I was sure I could see was right around magnitude 6. M57, the ring nebula, is there. I could not find anything in that spot to make me think I was seeing it. But I really liked looking at this on a dark night. It just looked really cool. And like I say, it just seemed like it was littered with stars. When you look up around the Milky Way area, if you look at it through a telescope, you find that a lot of this Milky Way is just zillions of tiny little stars. It's kind of amazing. Now here's the area of the sky where M27, the Dumbbell Nebula, is. Let's see, it says it's magnitude 7.3. And, okay, it's 480, so it's about not quite a fourth of the size of the moon. So it takes a fairly good little fuzzy patch, and I looked at this spot for quite a bit. I found that it was easy to see this little, I get that thing, kind of like an M shape. This star here, it was a lot fainter, but these here were pretty bright, and it's kind of like, if you're familiar with Cassiopeia, the crown, it looks kind of like that, only it's not nearly as bright, but it was pretty cool to look at. And I could see this little area here. I think it looks kind of like a broom. Sagitta constellation. That was neat to look at. And then over here, Delphinius, little bitty constellation that I never even knew existed for a long time. This one's actually, if you've got a high power telescope, there is a tiny little globular cluster in here. I think it's NGC 7005 or something like that. And it's a lot smaller than like M13 and those there are really big. Like M13, the entire thing is close to as big as the moon, but when you're looking at it through a telescope, the area you're looking at's not nearly as big as the moon, but it's still pretty big, but because you get out into the real faint stuff with it. Anyway, this was a nice area to look at. The bowl of the Little Dipper's a nice thing to look at too, especially one thing I like about it is it's a nice reference because you've got your 4 stars here that make the corner. You've got a magnitude 3, a magnitude 2, a magnitude 3, a magnitude 4, and a magnitude 5. So all in one view, if you can see them all, it helps you kind of get a reference as to what magnitude each star is. And one of the things I remember now when I was thinking about the first night I was looking, it was only maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours after sunset, so it was just getting dark, and satellites were still visible. And there's been a lot of times when I would check online to see when the International Space Station was going over, and of course it's really bright. You know, on a good night it'll be as bright as Venus or Jupiter if it's up really high. But I was seeing all kinds of satellites, and some of them were like magnitude 5 and magnitude 6. And like I say, to see them, you need to be, I guess, within a couple hours or so of sunrise or sunset so that you're still getting some sun, because if it's in the middle of the night and the sun's actually on the opposite side of the earth, the likelihood of them getting any sunlight to bounce back is pretty slim. But I happened to see one go right through this area, and I noticed that it was brighter than the magnitude 3 star, but it wasn't as bright as the magnitude 2. So I kind of estimated that it was about 2.5. And in case you're wondering, there's lines here that might be kind of distracting to you. That's actually kind of an estimation that I drew in there for my trees. I put a photograph of the area around my yard. I did that one night and did kind of a 360-degree panorama. This red line is the north line. I cut it off because, see, I made a straight line that goes from north to south. So now we got it right. So you got basically a line of your meridian going from north to south, and I put that in there just as a reference point. And then the green line, I drew that as a reference to kind of estimate where the tops of the trees are, and that gives me an idea of when I'm looking at something. It's like, well, maybe it's above the trees, maybe it's not. And it's sort of accurate. It's not exact by any means, but it gives me an idea. Now, if you've looked at some of my other videos, you might have noticed that I've taken pictures of the North American Nebula some. Matter of fact, I've been playing with that recently with a hydrogen alpha filter and also an oxygen 3 filter I bought. They're inexpensive ones that I bought on AliExpress. I'm going to make a video on all that sometime. I made a little bit of a video on the HA one, and I haven't done one on the oxygen 3 one yet. I've experimented with it, and they're pretty neat. I notice I have a little bit of a difference in focus on the 03 one, so I'm going to have to figure that out, because with a camera lens that gives me a little bit of an issue. With a telescope it wouldn't be that big a deal. Anyway, here looking at I've also looked through the binoculars up at this area. This Alpha Sig is Alpha Cygnus, which is Deneb, so that's easy to find. And I've looked to try to see what I could see of the North American Nebula area, and I've never really been able to see it in any binoculars, but there's quite a few stars in this area, so you can see. It's a neat area to look at, and it's easy to see in here. Matter of fact, all of the Cygnus constellation, you get your Northern Cross as you go from Deneb down towards the southern part of the sky, and you get over to Alberio. Yeah, that is. So you could, this area all through here, there's a ton of Milky Way. That's what this purplish color here is. That's representing the bands of the Milky Way. And it's really nice to look at that through this. And if you're in a dark site, you can start to see the definition of it here, where you've got the dark areas, and there's a lot of star clusters and stuff in here. Some of the star clusters are really big. Some of them take up more area than the moon, and they're kind of neat to look at. But like I say, to really see them good, I think, they're best from a really nice dark site. Even like if you were in town, like I say, since I looked on a full moon night, one of the things I noticed, I was looking up at Vega, and I couldn't actually see the rest of the constellation, the little parallelogram, which is my eyes. Yeah, here's Vega, and then the little parallelogram box. With the full moon, I couldn't see that little box, but with these binoculars, it was easy to see it. So it does add something. But they really excel in a really dark site. And like I say, I've used them with no eyeglasses, so you'd lose some there. If you can, if you can use them without glasses, that'd be good. If you have to use glasses, you might even consider one of the pairs that, like for example, the 2x40, which gives you a wider field, or if you want to spend more money with like the Orions, those 2x54s, because they're supposed to be 36 degrees. Now, when you start getting into that real wide, you might start finding that the elongated stars, which are on the very edges, are a little more prominent. Like I say, I think it's really just when you look at a really bright star when it's really noticeable. And the vignetting, this kind of gives you an idea here. Imagine the outer edges of it. You would notice that it's kind of darker out here and the center's brighter. And like I mentioned before, in the daytime, it was basically horrible. I mean, if I'd bought a pair of binoculars and it was doing that in the daytime, I wouldn't be happy at all. But at night, especially on a dark night, to me, it wasn't that much of an issue. I mean, some people, if you're used to really good equipment, it might drive you nuts. But if you want to save some money, at least for me, these worked out really good. I really like them. I've enjoyed using them. So anyway, I hope this gives you an idea of if you might be interested in something like this, whether it's this brand or another brand. I would definitely read some reviews and watch. There's a number of people that have made YouTube videos. Some of them have actually compared two brands side by side, and they give their impression of what they're like. So hopefully this helps you out.